Series 11, Episode 9. It takes you away. What takes you away is a frog.
I guess he was hopping mad.
The synopsis. In an isolated house in the Norwegian fjords, a scared girl hides alone, waiting for her father to return. In the distance, a monster comes to take people away, and for some reason, one mirror is not working as it should. The 13th Doctor and her friends must battle their own desires to work out what is going on.
That is an interesting synopsis of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting off of TARDIS Wiki. I'm just using that because it's
I know,
convenient.
but I'm saying that is an interesting synopsis they used.
Probably trying to hide what it actually,
Yeah, no spoilers while
yeah,
still giving you.
yeah. It's like it's one of those ones where you can tell, even without maybe seeing it, that maybe you're not getting all the information because it's very kind of spoilery in that way. Like it's spoilerable in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be a devastating spoiler, but this is better, I think, going through without having heard anything about the Solitract. It works better if you haven't seen that. Um, um, so yeah, we this is the first week. There's fun things. This is one of the things I do like. I both like and dislike, and it's enjoyably funny, but it's also kind of interesting. The Woolly Rebellion. Hearing about the Woolly Rebellion, it's like, okay, the sheep rise up. Uh, you're spoilering, what's with you and spoilers? I mean, don't you want to, not tell anything about the future as much as you can? Like, but I suppose she trusts them not to say anything about it, so it's like, okay. But I do enjoy the little random stuff that's like from the future and kind of weird, but it just like, yeah, that's a thing that just sort of the Doctor sort of just throws out there and just sort of walks off. It's like, well, that's a thing. Um, but yeah, we get the beautiful fjords. Um, see. So they come upon a cabin. Uh, and it's sort of suspicious, and also the fact that the Doctor has never been anywhere that wasn't important. um, let's see. So they go upstairs and they find a blind girl alone. Um, and then we find out something about Graham that it was just almost too fitting. He has a sandwich he keeps on him at all times nowadays. Was it cheese and pickle?
Him.
What?
Can you blame him? I mean,
Yeah.
after what happened in Rosa and wandering around all those planets and never being able to stop to eat.
Yeah. It seems like at some point, this when you get back, when you take a pit stop to take a drop by modern Britain, you'd raid a convenience store of some of some snack bars. It's like little cereal bars, and just like stuff them in your pockets and just have like 20 of them at all times. It's like, yeah, snack bar, cereal bar.
Maybe the doctor give him some a dimensionally transcendental lunchbox.
Yeah, yeah, that would be. Oh, that's too funny because you're just thinking.
Hey, Doc, all I want for Christmas is a dimensionally transcendental lunchbox. You know, one of those things big on the inside. I could stash all my sandwiches. Be brilliant. Just for food for thought. And for me.
What well, the thing is to think about, if you had, I'm just thinking, if you have a dimensionally transcendental thing, the best dimensions for a dimensionally transcendental thing are very thin, but a lot of as much area as you can handle. Because if you, the only restriction to what you can put in a dimensionally transcendental object is how big the opening is. If you can't get it through the door, you can't. And if you made it, say, big enough that you could put, a turkey in there, you could have a very, like, something like a little whiteboard, like a foot by foot style, this, like, something like one of those portable whiteboards. And, 1 second.
Or just, do what Newt Scamander did in
And we're back. There we go. Okay, it's now showing it just fine, I think. It's actually showing some audio, so I just have to be more careful about whacking the headphone cord.
Well, you should be more careful about whacking anything.
Well, see, I've got a bit of 11th Doctor syndrome, and I talk with my hands. Even if I don't have anybody I'm talking can see, even though you can't see me talking with my hands, I still talk with my hands.
Can you talk without waving your hands around like a lunatic?
Yes.
Yes.
No. And so, naturally, every once in a while, I swing a little wildly, and I knock something out of, I knock the headphone jack out. Luckily, luckily, I have moved my water out of my swing space. I'm unlikely to hit my water in my swing space. It's slightly off from where the rest of it is. So
you're saying you're one of those gesticulators?
Very much so. I do enjoy waving my hands about. I talk with my hands all the time. I don't know.
Part Italian, are you?
Not as far as I know. That's just as far as I know. Anyway, I guess getting back to what you're saying. Yeah, just going back over in case I need to recut this in, depending on everything. But yeah, the best shape for a transcendental lunchbox would be thin, flat, and as much area as is comfortable to carry. That way you could fit the largest item and just have like a whole picnic in there, and just throw that on your back, and then oh yeah, I have this dimensionally transcendental bag, and I just pull out a turkey, and I pull out a bag of some stuffing, and just Mary Poppins this stuff. What?
I said ew stuffing.
Eh. Which, there's the old thing of, Mary Poppins is just a Time Lord. That's the whole explanation for Mary Poppins, is she's a Time Lord.
Well, have you seen Missy?
Yeah, though Mary Poppins is quite a bit nicer than Missy.
But she tried going good. She tried.
Yes, she tried to be a good girl, but it just didn't hold.
How can you be a good girl when it's so easy to be bad?
And a lot more fun.
Indeed.
I need my friend back. That whole scene. uh, but yes. But yes, Mary Poppins is just a Time Lord. Um, and her bag is her TARDIS. Or at least it's just transcendental. Maybe her umbrella is her TARDIS. Like, he opens it a certain way, and it opens into the door into her time capsule. Anyway,
Well, the main character in Fantastic Beasts is a Time Lord.
okay.
He even kind of looks like the 11th Doctor.
Let's see. So they find out the girl they found upstairs, is blind, and
The Doctor promptly takes advantage of this by writing down information that she won't be able to read.
yes.
I'm writing a map. So, what does the map say? She wrote something else, didn't she?
Yeah, which she claims that Hannah thinks a monster took her father, and we find out later that her father had just set up some speakers, which is to make monster noises, and there's actually no monster per se, which is an interesting red herring on this. We get 2-4. Oh, this one doesn't have. There's a reason this one's slightly better. Chibnall's not involved. Which, I mean, again, we've kind of gone over that, but yeah, not all, but Chibnall has, when he graces it, it sometimes just, yeah. We're seeing. So they get to the. Let's see, what was it? The
An antizone.
What? Yeah, and they get to they mess with the mirror, and Yaz uses her also. Oh, at some point, Yaz does use her police training, which it does still feel like she's sort of been sent on. Like a lot of these episodes, she's been sent off on tasks. It's like, you're an extra set of hands. Go over there. You're not getting any development. Go over there. Sit over. You got this. Okay, for this.
Mm-hmm.
We've already established you've got training. You do that. Then at this point we get the mirror that doesn't reflect, and then we get the anti-zone, the sort of scab to keep the dimensions apart, that's inhabited by meat moths and a Ferengi. Which, out of context, without seeing this episode, that's a really freaking weird sentence to say. Sort of the scab keeping the dimensions apart, is occupied by meat moths and a Ferengi. Like, what? But if you've seen it,
Although, to be fair, Ferengis are a little less murderous.
Generally, yes. I mean, they'd rather just sell you the weapon. It's like, well, I'm
Exactly.
not going to kill you, but I'll sell this guy over here. And it seems to me like it would be something that Ferengis, you know, if they did need to take somebody out, they wouldn't do it themselves. They'd hire some mercenary who would work for. Here's the contract. Your contract is a contract is a contract. You kill him, I'll give you some latinum.
Exactly. They don't murder and they wouldn't tell him about the meat mobs. If they really wanted to kill him, just be like, "Oh, look at that pretty butterfly." And forget that's it.
Yes. Move around. You just tell them, hey, yeah, jump around, do jumping jacks. That scares them away. And
Yeah,
then and then
exactly.
and then not do anything. It's like I may have gave them some bad advice, but you know, free advice is seldom cheap. That's one of the rules of acquisition, I
Price
believe.
is worth the price you pay.
Well, then it's no longer free. If you pay, it's no longer free advice. But
No, that's what I mean. You don't pay anything that's not worth anything.
but well, in the fact that free advice is seldom cheap, and that usually if somebody's giving you free advice, it's not a in the Ferengi society. It's probably not out of goodwill. It's out of I'm going to manipulate you to do something I want you to do, so that it'll cost you something, but in the end, I'll get something out of it. Considering, yeah. So they're in the anti-zone. Eventually, after negotiating and doing some trading with some talking with Ribbons, as he's called, uh, uh, we have let's see, where were we? Okay. Yep. Yeah, at this point they run away as there's a tremendous amount of running involved, and jump out the other side of the in the anti-zone, and are back in the same house, but not really. uh, so at this point, there's a little something with Ryan and Ryan and Hannah. The Hannah ends up knocking out Ryan and running into the portal, and Ryan has to chase after her. Meanwhile, in the mirror world, we actually find out that you know where her father is. He's on the other side of the anti-zone with quote unquote her mother, his wife, and his dead wife. And it's like, no, this isn't real. They aren't who they are.
And then Grace appears and
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is a dream come true." Hannah comes in. "Wait, where's Ryan?" "Oh, shit." "Oh, he'll be fine. He's a good kid." Yeah, you got Grace." because Grace would never
Yeah,
send her grandson that way.
yeah, yeah. Just a little bit. It's like no, no, that's not how Geese would act. It's basically the whole thing is just it, we find out about the Solitract, which is basically the whole. We've created a sort of beginning of the universe sort of canon bit where it's like, yes, there's this Solitract, and everything else was there, but as long as Solitract was there, the universe couldn't form. So eventually, it got pushed off to the side into a different, you know, into a different, it had nuclear chickenpox. It got sort of quarantined off into its own dimension, and then the the rest of the universe could then form. It could form and be what it is. But it still gets lonely because it can't interact with the rest of the universe. Though how her fifth grandmother actually remembered that, knows that story, is an interesting thing, because that would be the start of time, would be those two separating, the Solitract and the universe.
The doctor himself, and I think it was the fifth incarnation, did end up going to the Big Bang and almost dying because of it, because of the whole extreme heat and pressure, blah, blah, blah. So going to the beginning of time is not completely unheard of.
Yes, but going before the beginning of time, though that doesn't even make sense. Yeah, how can you travel to a time that doesn't exist? And when you start thinking about the beginning of the universe, like where it started, it started, it's like time starts here. Click. Okay. Time didn't flow. There was like existence, but it wasn't temporal. And then just like time starts, and then everything starts moving. So was this energy? You can make yourself go cross-eyed over trying to figure out you know, trying to understand the beginning of the universe. Like this existed, and then it moved. But was that existence? Can it exist without time? Knowing what happens before time is a really hard thing to comprehend. Because it doesn't even make sense in some ways. um, anyway, but yeah, he's trying, but which it has very much a I'm going to use the perfect bait to keep you here, and yeah, and Hannah is just not buying anything the Soul Attract is selling. It's like, no, no, you're not my mother. How she knows this, I don't know, but
Well, she's blind, and so it's not, she can sort of see past the affectations of what's there.
well, if she didn't really say anything, I don't think before she sort of didn't say much before she called her out, and so you know how did she know? Anyway, um, so the whole thing, so like Graham goes through the whole ordeal of realizing Grace isn't real. This Grace isn't real, and he's like, okay, gotta go. Doctor stays behind to sort of satiate the Solitract, and it, and then like because the whole thing is destabilizing because it can't exist simultaneously with you know normal matter and that sort of thing. It can't. And so the whole thing's breaking down, and so everybody else leaves, but the doctor stays to sort of satiate the soul attract and keep it from allowing everything else to leave. To which it takes on the frog shape, which is a really awkward. It looks really awkward, like the way it moves. It's very puppetish and very mechanical. But even then, it you know even then, taking it down to her, it just keeps it continues to be having problems because she's normal matter as well, so she can't stay. So eventually, just like, all right, I got enough out of all this for the moment, and I don't want to collapse everything, so go. And
It's okay. We'll be BFFs forever.
yeah, uh,
Mm.
so they cut off the connection. Uh, Eric's moving down back to Oslo with Hannah, and will no longer be visiting the. He's got his closure, and and um, and we get the Ryan calling Graham granddad, and to which Ryan's like, "I'm not repeating it. Are you losing your hearing, old man?" Like, it's a very interesting episode. It's a little trippy towards the when you get to the solid tract, but overall, it's all right. It's an okay episode. It's not written by Chibnall, so it actually sort of resolves. You know, it's like it resolves really, and it's just there's a little it it still feels tacked on, but you get a lot of good stuff from Graham and Ryan, and the story's at least interesting. You know, this is more classic sort of Doctor Who-ish science fiction. I mean, it sort of comes out of nowhere because we've never heard about this before, but
Because it was just made up for this episode.
yeah, but yeah, obviously, but it doesn't take. But it sort of create. This is a continuity creator, not a continuity user. Like if you had, if you were dealing with the Daleks or the Cybermen, you'd be probably using continuity rather than creating it. But this is creating new continuity, and now there's a
And it
frog.
doesn't alter any prior, it doesn't clash with anything
Yeah, it just sort
past.
of creates something into a vacuum that was sort of blank before.
Also, a little fun fact, I created an OC back around when I was role playing as Q back during the Voyager era.
Mm-hmm.
That was very similar to the Solid Tract, only it was a Q and created during the Q Civil War.
Mm.
And and an injury from one of the Q weapons destabilized her energy and caused it so she was basically an anti-Q. And interaction with the Q continuum would kind of be like mixing matter and antimatter.
Mm. They can never touch.
Nope.
Or else they will explode. Yeah, let's see. Do. Yeah, and can't think of much else to say. Uh, Ryan and Graham are good in this, though. Well, Graham's really good in this. Ryan doesn't get as much to do. He's mostly babysitting Hannah, which is really awkward for him because he's just, like he said himself, he's rubbish with kids. Um, Hannah's, Hannah picks up on things pretty quickly. Um, the whole Graham and Grace meeting is a little. That's a little bit of heart wrenching. There, it's like
Yeah.
Mm.
He had
you've
to give her up again.
yeah. This whole this whole season has basically been him dealing with the loss of Grace, and
Yeah.
I mean, which we'll get to in the next episode as well, but which I think they really wrap they put a they'll still come back to it maybe occasionally in minor mentions, but I think they basically with this and the next episode they basically played out his grieving process with Grace, and he's probably okay. He's still gonna have he's not gonna be completely over it, but I think he's gonna have a lot more closure. At the end of the season, he's got a lot more closure, and it'll be mentioned every once in a while, but it's not gonna be. It may not be as hard hit next series.
So I guess running away from your problems does sometimes help.
Yep, I think that's enough from that. And if there's no other thoughts on It Takes You Away,
Nope.
Mm-mm.
alrighty then.